morning. My name is Guido Smallegange. I am the business manager for Emerald Publishing in Latin America and the Caribbean region. First of all, thank you so much, LASA, the Latin American Studies Association, for having us as Emerald being part of the Publisher Spotlight. And we're very honored as Emerald to be able to share with you our eBooks portfolio, and especially those books obviously related to social sciences areas. And we do not only publish research that actually makes an impact, but we also strive to publish research and therefore books for actually a fair society. Today we have with us our publishing team, for the books publishing team, and they will share with you a number of titles that we currently publish related to Latin America and related areas to Latin America. And I'll be handing over shortly to my team members. So first of all, we'd have my colleague Charlotte she's our VP of Books. She'll be speaking to us a little bit about what the Books program at Emerald is all about. And then we'd have our colleague Kim Chadwick. She's Emerald's Books Commission lead on social sciences. She'll speak to us a little bit on the books, and she'll show us some books that we've been publishing. And then finally, we'll finalize with Niall Kennedy, who's the Emerald's Books Commission lead for business management and economics as well. And then I'll come back with you towards the end, just to wrap up the session. First of all, before handing over to my colleagues, just for those that don't know Emerald Publishing, real briefly, so we are a UK-based publisher. We've been around for a little more than 50 years, and our roots are in academia. And we're really passionate about real impact. So what we're trying to do is to publish research that actually has an impact in our local communities, in our societies. Of course, everything that we publish, and especially on the journal side, is ranked in citation indexes and so forth. But we are more, nowadays, we're more interested in actually knowing that the research that we do publish, that actually has an impact. Today, we publish more than 300 journals, a little more than 2,000 books, and also case studies, which are used in business schools. And obviously, we partner with authors from all around the world, including regionally here from the Latin American and the Caribbean region. And we're predominantly a social sciences publisher. So we publish management side, but we also publish on the social sciences side, just like education, health and social care. So we're really diverse. And what I said at the beginning, we strive not only to publish research that has a real impact in our societies, but we also strive now to create a better society with the research that we publish. So just really briefly, our solutions as Emerald Publishing. So we've got on the online resources part, we've got the journals and the ebooks and the teaching cases that we publish. On the research support side, there's a whole range of services that we provide to you as researchers, early career researchers, on how to publish your papers with us, and we explain you how the whole publishing process works. And finally, we also have publishing services where we partner with an organization and a university to publish their specific journal on their behalf, and that journal becomes available in our platform as well. So this is pretty much the content that we offer. So again, journals, a little more than 309 journals at this moment, again, in the fields of business management and economics, but also we have journals in the areas of engineering, computing, technology, and of course the social sciences. The teaching cases, like I mentioned, we publish about 2,000 teaching cases at this point. And specifically today, we're going to be talking about the ebooks, right, in the fields of social sciences, and those obviously with a link with Latin America. So this is where I'm going to hand over now my controls to my colleagues. So please go ahead and enjoy the session, and I'll come back later to you if you have any questions that you can actually post throughout the session with us today in the chat.
Hi, buenos dias. My name is Charlotte Maiorana. I'm the VP of Books here at Emerald. So as Guido was just speaking to, Emerald has been around for a bit over 50 years. However, Books program has only started in 2016, just really 5 short years ago. And in that time, a lot has happened. We won the Independent Publishers Guild Publisher of the Year in 2018. Immediately after that, in 2019, we won the British Book Award for Academic Education and Professional Publisher of the Year, and we were shortlisted for the same in 2020. And this was really important to us because one of the judges even said that Emerald is obviously a great place to be published and a real go-to place for academics. And this hit home because, as you'll see in the content that we'll be talking to today, yes, our content theoretically talks about a fairer society, but we at Emerald, our ethos is in the real impact of this content. And since the beginning of this program, we wanted to ensure that we were going to give a voice and a platform outside of the ivory tower. And we've worked really closely with our colleagues around the world to ensure we were bringing in content from the global south, particularly with our teammates like Guido and around the Latin American region. We've worked very closely to bring in handbooks, monographs, and research that's really making a difference. So two of my colleagues are going to talk through a lot of this content today. The first is Kim Chadwick. She heads up the social sciences part of our team. And then over to Niall Kennedy, who heads up the business, management, economics, and finance part of our team. So over to you, Kim.
Up our social sciences side of our team, and so I'm just going to talk you through some of the titles that we have coming out this year and that we've published in the last couple of years that either come from Latin American authors or focus on the Latin America region and speak to this kind of goal that we have of publishing for a fairer society. So I'm going to start off with a great handbook that we published in January of this year, which is the Emerald Handbook of Public Administration in Latin America. This is a really comprehensive, very in-depth handbook which does offers a chapter per country in Latin America and also some more kind of theoretical chapters as well. Really is kind of a one-stop shop for everything any scholar or particularly any kind of course would need to know about public administration and policy in Latin America. And it's edited by a really senior team of researchers who are kind of leaders in the public administration field based in the US, Spain, and Uruguay. Next up, we have another handbook that we actually published towards the end of last year, but I think is a really great example of the kind of work that we try to publish, but on a scholarly side that speaks to this kind of fairer society message. So this was the Emerald Handbook of Crime, Justice, and Sustainable Development. We look for lots of work that talks to the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, that either looks at, how industry or society or or academia can help to work towards those goals, or what needs to change in societies in order to achieve those goals to establish a more equitable society for all. And that's exactly what this book does, but it also kind of critically examines issues around the SDGs relating to crime and offers kind of suggestions to ensure that policies and practices around achieving the SDGs aren't counterproductive, which is really important. And so that has chapters from all over the world. It's a really international collection, but it includes a specific chapter on Latin America, looking at curbing crime and violence and in use of the SDGs in Latin America. Next up, we have a really great book that just published about 6 weeks ago, looking at state responses to feminicide, and is specifically a case study of Brazil. The author is based in the UK, but has spent a huge amount of time in Brazil working with local communities and activists, NGOs, politicians, even kind of state prosecutors and police. And it provides a really detailed but very accessible case study about how strategic action by women's movements and kind of activists resulted in significant improvements in the kind of prevention of domestic violence and feminicide. So it's a really important issue and fantastic to be able to kind of present a book that has already done the impact, if that makes sense. We're all kind of about demonstrating real impact, and this book is kind of reporting on a real change that happened in the world as a result of the research, which is fantastic. The next great example is From Human to Post-Human Security in Latin America. So this is looking across the continent at issues relating to human security, issues like human rights and dignity, water, food and poverty, health and insecurities. Each chapter looks at a specific social problem and analyzes it through a human security perspective, and it's edited by some leading scholars based at the Universidad Iberoamerican Puebla in Mexico. And that came out in April as well. And then we have a title that's coming out in September of this year, looking at feminist knowledge and discourses in the Global South. So this covers the whole of the Global South. So it looks at it has chapters looking at Africa and India and other places as well, but also has a couple of great chapters based in Latin America. So one looking at what feminism means, and particularly looking at feminist activists' definitions in Brazil, and then another really great chapter looking at the indigenous feminist agenda in Latin America, which is really important. Next up, we're going to move into some titles that aren't specifically from Latin American-based authors or specifically focused on Latin America, but are part of our kind of broader suite of books that we are publishing this year that kind of speak to that fairer society message. So this is a really great book from our Society Now series. Society Now is our kind of flagship series in the social sciences, but they are short, accessibly written books that, you know, speak to that message of us wanting to move beyond the ivory tower. And so they, you know, these books are written to be read by anybody, anybody kind of interested in this subject area, but can obviously be read within the academy as well. So this book is all about streaming culture and the way that kind of entertainment has changed thanks to platforms like Spotify and YouTube and Netflix, and how that's kind of created its own economy or a new economy of entertainment. It's a really interesting book, and it talks about some of people's like favorite Netflix shows like Tiger King or Bridgerton, which makes it quite a fun read. And the author David Adati is based at the University of Texas at Arlington in the US. This is another title then from that Society Now series that's all about climate change or the climate emergency. It's a really interesting and kind of groundbreaking book that pushes for a sociological understanding of climate change. Obviously, the lens of climate change is understood, you know, in the media, or, you know, it for the most part is a kind of scientific understanding, which is, you know, very important because we need to know the scientific data and the statistics. But this author stresses that we also really need to understand how societies created impact and can help solve the crisis. We can't look at climate change as being only a scientific issue. We need to understand it as a societal issue as well. So the author kind of rewrites the history of some of the biggest events of the 19th and 20th century and rewrites them through a lens of climate change to demonstrate how kind of big changes in society or in different societies have impacted the climate as it is now. One of those is he kind of looks in a lot of detail at Brazil's kind of move towards energy independence and whether that's been a positive or negative thing for the region. But it also goes far beyond that to look at kind of the electrification of societies in general, the British Industrial Revolution, and much more. So it's a very, very important and kind of polemic book that's coming out next month, which we're really excited about. We then just wanted to highlight some of our kind of key series that we publish across the social sciences, that are kind of some of our flagships that present really interesting titles every year. So this first one, Great Debates in Higher Education, is our flagship education series, or higher education series. And the idea is that it presents research-informed but debate-driven books, looking at kind of issues and challenges related to higher education, with the idea that anybody who works within a university could read them. They don't have to specifically be for education scholars. So we've covered and continue to cover a whole vast array of issues in the series. It's been publishing for about 3-4 years now. I think we've published about 15 books. Some of them are, you know, country specific, such as there's a title there on the slide called Reimagining Historically Black Colleges and Universities. They are a specific kind of school in the US, so that book is, you know, explicitly focused on the US context, but many others in the series kind of can be used across areas and across different countries. So yeah. Next, we have a really nice series called The Concise Guides to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which kind of is as it sounds. It offers short, expert-informed guides to the Sustainable Development Goals. Each book in the series kind of offers like an explanation of what the goal is, why it's important for kind of sustainable development, and what steps can be or are being taken to try and achieve it. The series is doing one book per sustainable development goal, and we'll be closing out the series this year, with the last few books covering the last few goals, but we are yet to cover. So that will be complete by the end of this year, and the whole set will be available. Next is a series called Arts for Health, which is a really innovative series of short and accessibly written books that look at the importance of various art forms on health, particularly mental health, but also people's physical health. So each book looks at a different art form, such as singing, drawing, or theatre. As you can see here, we've also had books on reading, and there's books forthcoming on photography and film. And they're kind of a great resource for both health and social care professionals, but also really for anybody in understanding how to care for themselves or others, and how different creative practices and art forms can improve and support your physical and mental well-being. Finally, I think we have a series called Surviving and Thriving in Academia, which is a really nice series, which is all about, excuse me, I have a dog barking in the background, which is all about researchers supporting other researchers. So the books provide very kind of practical and helpful advice for things that you don't necessarily get trained on doing as an academic. They present really international perspectives. So every book has a huge range of international researchers who are offering their advice, so that it's not country specific. And we try to make it as kind of neutral as possible, while also sharing people's personal experiences, so that it can really be engaged with by anybody. And so we had two books. We've had two books published in that series this year. The ones on the left-hand side, and we had two more published a couple of years ago, and we have several more coming next year as well. And then we just wanted to highlight some of our handbooks as well. I talked about a couple just at the beginning there, but we also have a bunch more handbooks publishing this year, and these are just some of the examples of them. These are from across our whole collection. So we have a great one that published in March about blockchain and business. That one in the middle is the Emerald International Handbook of Technology Facilitated Violence and Abuse. And it is the first and only open access handbook in criminology, which means it's completely free to read online, and is a really kind of groundbreaking, very in-depth analysis of technology facilitated violence in criminology. And then we also have a great handbook of women and entrepreneurship in developing economies. And finally, from a social sciences side, we just wanted to highlight some of the titles that we've published over the past few years that have a specific Latin American focus. So we had a great book looking at women's empowerment in different parts of the world, including Latin America, that came out last year, that was edited by some folks from Mexico. Sorry, dog barking. We then also had a great book in 2019 that looked at professional learning networks, which are a form and a kind of tool used in school improvements, or for linking different schools or teachers together to kind of improve learning outcomes. And this book looked at the huge rollout of professional learning networks in Chile, and kind of analysed how successful that had been and how that program could potentially be applied elsewhere. And then finally, in 2017, we had a great book that looked at Brazil in terms of its like kind of media and communications industry, and like kind of looking at it as the country of the future for communications. These are by no means the only ones on our backlist. These are just some highlights from the last few years. And with that, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Neil, who's going to take you through our business management and economic titles.
Thanks so much, Kim. And thanks to Guido and Charlotte for their introduction, and hello to everyone who's joined us. I'm calling in from West Yorkshire in the north of England. I hope you're all doing well. And as Kim mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our recent and previous business management and economics titles. So if we can move on to the next slide, please, that would be great. So I'm going to start going back where Kim ended on the social sciences side by talking briefly about some of our backlist titles that have come from Latin American authors. We've been really fortunate that we've been able to commission and grow a program particularly around supply chain and logistics in relation to Latin America. There are a couple of books highlighted on this slide from Hugo Yoshizaki, who's at the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil. They have specifically been in that area. And the other one highlighted was by Gabriela Alvarado, who is a Mexican-based scholar looking at management education's growth in Latin America. There are some others. These are ones we're just pulling out. And as I say, we've had some good success in growing our coverage of supply chain logistics in the region, but we're keen to maintain that, but also to grow in other areas of business, so areas like HRM and marketing, international business, tourism studies. So certainly kind of interested in speaking to scholars who have projects in those areas if they're interested in coming to us. So we'll move on now from the backlist to the forthcoming titles, and I'm going to highlight just 2 forthcoming titles for this year by Latin American authors. So this title is called Creating Shared Value to Get Social License to Operate in the Extractive Industry. It's by the author Cesar Sanas, who is based in Peru, and it's looking at using concepts and tools to make strategic decisions in businesses that will help determine their future direction and the competitive position for company enterprises. It's got chapters that are examining areas like the creation of shared value based on good relations between companies and their wider communities and building sort of company legitimacy. So it has part of that sort of CSR function as well, which ties in really well with responsible management, which is a key theme for us as a goal for Emerald and for the commissioning that we're currently doing in business and management. So we can move on to the next title, please. So this title is written by a Mexican-based author, Maria Reyes Martinez. It is looking at empowerment, transparency, technological readiness, and talking about their influence on firms' financial performance, specifically in the Latin American context. So it examines these key themes and how they can then impact upon the growth of a company. So it's looking at empowering the workforce through competency and self-determination. It's talking about improving transparency in a firm at all levels and the impact that can have on the financial performance. And it's also looking at the critical role that's now played by information and communications technology and how vital that is to growing and maintaining the financial performance of the firm. I'm going to move on now and just talk about a couple of titles that are coming out in 2022. So it's throwing forward a little bit further, but I think they're worth highlighting because they're of particular relevance to the Latin American region. So we have a handbook of entrepreneurship in Latin America. This is being overseen by 2 Mexican-based editors. It is a large-scale research handbook. It's going to be in the region of 600 pages. It's going to have, I think, between 30 and 40 chapters, and it's looking at entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial practice in Latin America, but specifically looking at through the lens of the millennial age bracket and how they are tackling entrepreneurial practices and engaging with entrepreneurship, and how that's going to help shape the future of the region. It's covering lots of theoretical advances that have happened in the last decades, but it's also looking at the practical implications of entrepreneurial endeavors that are going on at a subnational and also a national level across the entire region. Now, one of the editors, Oscar Mendez, is actually involved in another title that's forthcoming for next year, which is around family business debates, and it's looking at these in the context of Latin America again. It's covering a really wide range of subjects, looking at both the positive and the negative side of family business practices. And it's going to be covering a fairly global range, but Latin America is certainly going to form a big part of it. And I'm just going to move on now to the next slide to talk about one other 2022 title that I did just want to highlight. This is Unsustainable Futures for Latin America and the Caribbean. It's being authored by Maria Alejandra Gonzalez Perez, who is based in Colombia. This will come out the start of next year. And it's a title which ties in really, really well with some of the themes that Kim was talking about around sustainability and the UN SDGs. It's offering new solutions for researchers, managers, policymakers around creating a sustainable future for the Latin American and Caribbean region. It will be an edited volume, 13 chapters, of researchers coming from a range of different countries across Latin America and the Caribbean. And we're really excited about it. The editor's vice president for admin at the Academy for International Business, and it's great that she's publishing this title with us, and it ties in so well with some of the themes we've been talking about around responsible management, fairer society, sustainability. So excited to see that come in, and excited to publish that next year. I'm going to highlight a series, one of my series that I commission, which is on tourism, security, safety, and post-conflict destinations. Now, one of the series editors for this series, Maximiliano Castaña, is based at the University of Palermo in Argentina. He, along with his co-series editor, Hugo Serafin, who's in the UK, really led on the importance of the series, and it's come out with a number of titles at a time when of real global crisis for the tourism industry, and a time when tourism researchers are really reflecting on the future of the industry, as well as current practices. And I just want to highlight a couple of titles that we've got in this series that are forthcoming. So if I can get the next slide here, please, if that's possible. So this is the first one I wanted to highlight, which is talking specifically about how tourism destinations are going to recover from the pandemic, and looking at tourism and hospitality as global industries in a post-pandemic context. It has a global editorial team. There are editors based in Kenya, based in India, based around the world, and we've got a really broad range of contributions to this one. There are chapters specifically looking at examples in places like Mauritius and Bali. There is a very good chapter looking at tourism disaster preparedness in Argentina. So I think that's quite a relevant title to be highlighting, and again sort of showcases the future-facing nature of this series. So if I could move on to the next title from this series, is another one that's reflecting on the COVID-19 impacts, and it's talking specifically around pandemics and travel. This is led by a Portuguese editorial team, and they are looking specifically at the implications of health risks when it comes to tourism, and are looking at the wider impacts of epidemics and disease, and how that's going to affect tourism and mobility, both what's occurred in the past and reflecting that for a post-COVID era. It has chapters that I think will be relevant to scholars of this area who are based in Latin America. There's chapters looking at Brazilian tourism, case studies of Ecuador, tourism in Mexico as well. So I think there's a lot here which will be of high relevance to a Latin American audience. So I'm going to move on just to talk now about some highlight recent titles and forthcoming key titles that we sort of feel have got global relevance. The first one I'm going to highlight is a professional title. So this is a book that's aimed less at a scholarly audience and more at a industry audience. The book's called Answer Intelligence, and it is written by Brian Gibkowski, who is an associate professor of management, and he's also a CEO of Sampler Science Corps. He does research around the role of questions and answers when it comes to business and society. The book is around trying to identify high answer intelligence really practices that will result in making industry practitioners really expert communicators, which is going to benefit them as individual employees, but also benefit their businesses as well. And it's been a really successful title for us. It's got contributions from some global organizations like Salesforce, for example, as well as from other academics. And it's got a lot of practical, engaging tips around the growth of answer intelligence, where practitioners who are using the book can work with it directly, almost like a kind of a workbook, to really enhance and develop their own skill set as they use the book. So moving on to the next title. So this is a book in a series that we have just recently launched, which is called Exploring Effective Leadership Practices Through Popular Culture. It's a really fun series. It's looking at lessons for leadership and business and management generally through the lens of particular kind of popular media franchises. So the one that I'm highlighting here is talking about Middle-earth. So obviously J.R.R. Tolkien and The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and those books and films. We've also had another title come out recently, which was around the whole Star Wars franchise and the Jedi mindset when it comes to leadership. So it's quite fun. It's pretty innovative as well, but it's engaged with a serious side of looking at evidence-based leadership and management practices through this lens and trying to draw lessons that a professional reader can and a student audience can really get engaged with. So whether that's themes around mentorship, whether it's around sort of transformational leadership and ethical decision making and all these things that I'm sure you can envisage when it comes to these sorts of films and books, mentorship, things like that. So we think they're really, really engaging titles. They're accessible to a wide audience. They've got a fairly low price point at £20, $30. So I think we'll be seeing more of these titles coming through. We've got ones in the pipeline that are around sort of the Marvel franchise and other areas as well. So it's really a really exciting series, and I think it's one that, you know, given the global nature of these franchises, there's something that people globally will be able to engage with and reflect on when they're thinking about their own leadership. Moving on to the next title. This is another professional title, so again aimed very much at an industry audience, and it's talking about the sort of collaboration that goes on between the CEO of companies with their senior HR officer, and how that collaboration can really help businesses to build value through their engagement together in a partnership with talent acquisition to their business. So it's focused on trying to design and operationalize value-driven talent strategies. So there's a real process for bringing talent into your business and then enhancing that talent's growth within your business. And as a book, it's providing tools and insights for business leaders that are seeking to win over the more kind of challenging battles that are out there to attract the best talent. It's got a really great author team, Thomas McGuire, who's actually been in similar roles at big institutions. And Linda Brenner, she runs a consultancy firm, and she's worked previously with companies. She's been on management teams at Gap and Home Depot, so they both got great industry experience that they're bringing to bear, and there's a lot of engaging learning that can come, I think, for practitioners who want to grow the talent within their business and bring new talent into it. And the last title I'm going to highlight is in our Future of Work series, which is a really exciting short form series. It's a series aimed at practitioners, researchers, and a wider trade audience. It's focused on cutting edge topics that are reflecting on the changing world of work. This one is specifically looking at HR, and it's looking at future developments that technologies are going to impact upon the future of HR and how HR can be modernized to respond to these sort of far-reaching technologies and the industrial change that they're going to result in. It's written by two great US scholars on HR management, and we've got future titles coming out in the series around workforce health. That's one is coming out towards the end of this year, and we have another really interesting one coming out early next year around the future of recruitment. So there's lots going on in that series. Those are the titles I want to talk about today, and I'm going to pass back to Guido now.
Thanks to researchers and even practitioners. So great. So just wrapping up our session from today. So again, we at Emerald, we publish more than 2,600 titles. Some of the titles you just saw highlighted by Niall and by Kim as well. So again, we've authorship from all over the region, and hopefully you yourself will be motivated as well to partner with us and to publish your works with us in our books. Again, we've got titles available from 1991 until obviously this year, and our forthcoming title list is already available. Again, it's all quality, the books that we're talking about at Emerald. We've won for, I believe, a third consecutive year, the Independent Publisher Award year for eBooks in the UK. So we're very proud of that. So just to recap, again, so what Neil talked about, the business management and economics books, we have those, a little more than 600 titles, again, ranging from accounting, finance, to tourism, hospitality, and management, titles that he spoke to, HR, learning, and organizational studies. So we have a lot of very interesting titles there for you. And also on the social sciences side, we've got very good collections, specifically in sociology and education. And of course, we still have some titles highlighted by Kim as well and Neil. So with this, we come to the end of the presentation of today. Thank you so much for attending. And it's been great being with you today. So just do let us know if you have any more questions from our side. There's the, let me just put up on the screen, if you can see that. So there's my email address as well. They're up on the screen. And yeah, we're ready here to help you and answer all the questions that you might have. So once again, thanks Kim, Neil, and Charlotte for the session today. Thanks again, Lasse, for having us, in this space to highlight some of our key titles. And I think it's been great, and hope to see you soon and become part of our books program and have those books as well for your learning and for your academic endeavors. So thank you once again, and muy buenas tardes, buenos días, obrigado, and